Carl Weathers was propelled into stardom when he first played the insanely jacked Apollo Creed in Rocky. In this video, I'll be telling you exactly how he got so ripped up for Rocky. I'll explain to you how he was able to do it on a vegetarian-only diet. I'll go through his unique training plan. I'll be talking about his steroid use, and then at the end of the video, I'll be giving you your very own full workout plan so you can train just like Apollo himself. Looking back, it was clear that Carl Weathers was the perfect man to play the antagonist of Rocky 1, Apollo Creed. But would you believe it that when Carl first put his name in for the role, the producers completely ignored him? See, Sylvester's goal for Rocky 1 was to have the most exciting, impressive, and climactic fight scene ever seen on film. So Sylvester and the other producers wanted a boxer who could also act for the role of Apollo Creed. Someone that could really bring some intensity and realism to that final fight in the movie. So along comes Carl Weathers, who at the time was a relatively unknown young actor with zero boxing experience. But Carl was convinced that he was the only man that could play Apollo Creed. So even after being told by his agent that the producers had no interest in seeing him, Carl begged and pleaded his case until he finally managed to get a screen test with Sylvester himself. But the funny thing is that when Carl came in for the screen test, he had no idea that he'd be doing it with Sylvester. Because remember, at the time, Sylvester was really unknown, so Carl wouldn't have recognized his face. What happened next is pretty funny, and I'll let Carl himself tell you how it went down.
Did you read with Stallone?
Yes, I did, but I didn't know that was Sylvester Stallone at the moment I met him.
I mean, he's relatively unknown at the time, right?
Yeah, but that's partly why. But the other part is I was introduced to him, the writer. So, and as Sly would do, he's doing Rocky, and there's mumble going on, and I'm standing up, I'm chomping at the bit, you know. I mean, I've got all this energy going, and at the end of it, the reading, it's like quiet. It's like crickets, man. But the producers and the directors are kind of leaning over to each other, and then I see John Avildsen, our director, giggle a little bit, and I'm really nervous now because I think I blew the interview, right, and blew the audition. So I chirp out, you know, if you get me a real actor, I could do a lot better.
Nice.
I have no idea of why they laughed too, you know? And Stallone looks up at me like, this idiot, who's he? Who does he think he is, you know? And I tell people, I think I got the job because Sly wanted to beat the hell out of me. That's what I think.
So Carl pretty much got the part because Sylvester wanted a chance to beat him up. That's pretty funny. But in addition to that, when Carl met with the producers, they asked him if he had any boxing experience. And Carl actually lied and tried to trick them into thinking that he did. But then one of the producers asked him to take off his shirt. And the moment they saw his shredded physique, that was all they needed to see, and he landed the part. So how exactly did he build such an amazing body that was able to land him the role? Well, it was all thanks to Vince Gironda, aka the Iron Guru. Vince Gironda was a pro bodybuilder, personal trainer, and owner of the famous Vince's Gym, which was frequented by many celebrities back in the day. Over the years, Vince trained many of these celebrities, including Ferrigno, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Clint Eastwood, and of course Carl Weathers. So he trained some huge actors over the years. Carl started working out with Vince 2 years before he landed the role of Apollo Creed, and together they built him the physique that would later become famous thanks to Rocky 1. Vince Gironda had a system specifically designed to get movie stars ready for the roles. Here's a quote from Carl about the system from an article released in 1977. It's a great system for building hard muscle. I pick out 6 to 7 exercises that will work the whole body. I perform sets, but not in the usual way. That is, I start with maybe a chest movement, go on to a leg movement, and then something for the shoulders until I've done one set of every movement in my program without pausing, as is the case in the usual fashion. When I've done 6 or 7 exercises, I take a short rest and repeat the cycle. I do this 6 times, sometimes more. The idea here is to work as fast as possible. I get a great muscle pump, and it's good for cardiovascular too. I like to grind out the reps. So Vince Gironda's system was essentially a full body circuit training program, similar to the kind that many modern day trainers use, called peripheral hard action training, which I've actually talked about in a few other of my videos. The benefit of a system like this, just like Carl said, is that you get a great cardio workout while getting in a full body resistance training workout at the same time. I really like this type of training for people who are really busy and short on time because of how efficient it is. But will you actually get great results using a system like this? Yes and no. It really depends on your goal. If your goal is to build a modest amount of muscle mass while cutting down on your body fat and increasing your cardiovascular capacity, then I'd say a program like this is perfect for you. But if you want to build as much muscle as possible, this program really falls short in a couple ways. First, because of the lack of rest and fast pace of the program, you're not going to be able to do as much weight or as many reps on each individual exercise as if you were to split them up and do them on their own, meaning less high quality volume and less muscle building stimulus for each muscle group. And the second reason you won't build muscle optimally using a program like this is because of something known as the interference effect. The interference effect is a phenomenon by which adaptation to concurrent strength training and endurance training is diminished compared to separately training only strength or endurance. That's just a fancy way of saying that if you want to get the most out of your strength training, you need to do it separately from your cardiovascular training. But believe it or not, the fact that this program wasn't very well suited to building large amounts of muscle actually worked in Carl Weathers' favor. See, Carl Weathers was so blessed when it came to his genetics that he actually had to work to make sure he didn't build up too much muscle mass. What a nice problem to have. Here's a quote from Carl. "I work at keeping my muscle size down. It'd be the easiest thing in the world for me to gain 50 more pounds of hard muscle. Right now, I tip the scale at 220 at a height of 6 feet 2 inches. I'm not interested in bodybuilding in the way, say, Arnold Schwarzenegger does it. I am first and foremost an actor." So since Carl had no interest in being a bodybuilder, and he didn't want to get too big so that he could play a variety of roles, this type of circuit training plan was perfect for him. Now make sure to stick around to the end of the video, where I'll be providing you with a full training plan based off of Carl Weathers' training for Rocky. And if you're liking the video so far and want me to do one covering Michael B. Jordan's training for Creed 2, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment Creed 2 down below. So that's his training. But as you know, when it comes to having an amazing body, it's 70% diet and 30% training. So you might be surprised to find out that at the time, Carl was on a completely vegetarian diet and got all of his protein from dairy, eggs, and plant-based sources. Now obviously Carl had amazing genetics and also may have been using performance enhancing drugs, but we'll talk more about that later. But can a natural person with regular genetics really see amazing results when it comes to muscle growth while on a vegetarian diet or even a vegan diet? Well, the obvious thing that might hold you back from maximizing muscle growth while on a vegetarian or vegan diet is the lack of meat. Duh, right? But what about meat actually makes it such a powerful tool when it comes to building muscle? There are a few reasons, but the biggest one is that meat is packed full of amino acids that are essential for muscle growth. See, not all protein is built equal when it comes to building muscle. Protein is made up of amino acids, and there are 20 that your body needs to function properly. And of these 20, there are 9 that are considered essential amino acids, meaning that your body can't create them on their own and you need to get them from your diet. These 9 essential amino acids are, you guessed it, essential when it comes to building muscle, and your body needs the right balance of all 9 to do so. In fact, if you don't have enough of all 9, your body will actually start to break down muscle tissue to create a proper balance. So this is where things get tricky for vegetarians and especially vegans, since vegans are restricted to only plant-based sources of protein, since they can't have eggs and dairy, because many plant-based sources only contain a few of these 9 essential amino acids. So you need to eat them in specific combinations to get a full spectrum of essential amino acids. There are some plant-based sources like quinoa and soy that are complete proteins, meaning they contain all 9 essential amino acids, but they also are full of carbs. So if you're gonna hit 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, without going over on your calories, it can make things difficult with plant sources because plant-based protein sources have a lot of fat and carbs when compared to lean meat protein sources. Vegetarians have it a lot easier than vegans in this category though, since they can have lean, non-meat complete protein sources like egg whites, Greek yogurt, and cottage cheese. There's also the issue of micronutrients, but we won't go too deep into that in this video. For the most part, you can make up for most micronutrient deficiencies while on a vegan or vegetarian diet through supplementation. So all in all, it's definitely possible and relatively easy to get everything you need to build muscle while on a vegetarian diet. You can also get everything you need on a vegan diet, but it's essentially like doing bodybuilding on hardcore mode, seen as you're adding a lot of complexity to your diet. But if you want to avoid meat and other animal products for ethical or religious reasons, then this added complexity is 100% worth it. So now for the big question. Was Carl Weathers taking performance-enhancing drugs while preparing for Rocky? Well, the actor hasn't spoken on his steroid use directly, but there's a few things we can take a look at to make an educated guess. First and foremost, it's important to point out the fact that Carl's trainer, Vince Gironda, was vehemently against the use of steroids for physique development, claiming they contributed to a grotesque appearance. So it wasn't like Carl was training under someone like Franco Columbu, who was a big steroid user. And secondly, like we talked about earlier, Carl Weathers said that he had to work hard not to get too big. So even if he was taking steroids, he wouldn't want to take too much, and he would want to take specific performance enhancing drugs to make sure that he just stayed lean without packing on too much size. Now, looking at Carl's physique, it's definitely one that most people would have trouble getting naturally, especially considering the fact that he's 6'2", so he's really tall. But given how widespread the use of steroids were back in the 70s and 80s, I imagine Carl was probably using some amount of testosterone or maybe human growth hormone to help him get and stay crazy lean while holding on to all this muscle mass. The thing is, as a natural, it's pretty easy to build a lot of muscle mass or get really lean, but it's really tough to do both. So if you see someone who's incredibly lean and has a lot of muscle mass and maintains that for long periods of time, not just a single day or week for a photo shoot or competition, then that's throwing up some red flags. Now that being said, you can still expect to get amazing results if you follow a similar circuit training plan to the one that Carl Weathers used, but just keep in mind that you might progress more slowly than Carl, and you might not get as lean while holding on to as much muscle mass as he did. With fitness, your goal should always be better than you were yesterday. Don't compare yourself to others, and don't get down on yourself if you aren't as big or as lean as someone else is. Everyone is living with their own specific circumstances, and you just need to do the best with the hand you're dealt. So here's a modernized version of Carl Weathers' circuit training plan. It's a 4-day-a-week routine where you'll be working the full body across 2 circuits each day. I've designed it so you won't be doing too much volume on any given muscle group across the week. Let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and now go check out my video on how Michael B. Jordan trained for his role as Apollo Creed's son in Creed. I'll see you there.